Commissioner, and my right honourable friend, the MP for Southport, to lay flowers on the street of the attack. And the Prime Minister has been in Southport with the Mayor of the Liverpool City region this afternoon. I also met this morning with some of the first responders, and police, the North West Ambulance Service and Merseyside Fire and Rescue, who arrived at an unimaginably distressing scene yesterday and who responded with heroic professionalism. Aided by passers-by, NHS workers and off-duty emergency workers who heard the calls of distress and ran to help. As the police officers said to me when we spoke, they do these jobs knowing they can be called upon in the toughest of times, but nothing still can prepare you for an attack on little children. And I want to recognise the toll that that can take. Those emergency workers were back at work yesterday. They live locally. And some of them had been to the dance centre in the past with their own children or relatives, but they wanted to be out in their own community, continuing to serve and support the people of Southport. That is public service at its very best. Yeah. I also offer my sincere thanks to everyone in the NHS, with hospitals across the region tending to the victims and supporting their families right now. And to Sefton Council, Merseyside Police and Family Liaison Officers who are already working to provide extensive support to the victims' families and to the community. And this morning I met with staff from Victim Care, the Samaritans and local youth workers who are also already providing local support to those who need it. The Home Office and the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government stand ready to support them and work with them as they deal with the distressing aftermath of this terrible attack. Merseyside Police are now leading an extremely serious criminal investigation. They're being supported by counter-terrorism police. And so far, Merseyside Police have confirmed they were called to the dance studio just before noon yesterday morning, where 13 people had been attacked, 11 children and 2 adults who tried to prevent the attack. And they arrested a 17-year-old male at the scene. The police have said they are not looking for anyone else in connection with the attack, and they do not believe there is an ongoing threat. As you have rightly reminded the House, Mr. Speaker, this is an ongoing investigation. It must not be impeded or compromised in any way. That means all of us have a responsibility not to do or say anything to cut across or prejudice the criminal investigation. We must let the police do their job, and they have my full backing in that task. Yeah. And more than that, we must show respect for the families. Where there are updates, Merseyside Police work hard to try to provide information first to the families, even though that is not always easy or possible. Likewise, it is extremely important that people don't spread damaging misinformation online. False information has already been extensively shared in the last 24 hours. Those who do this for their own purposes risk undermining a crucial criminal investigation. And I ask everyone to show some respect for the community in Southport and for families who are grieving and in trauma. In these dark and difficult moments, the police must be able to get on with their work, and communities must be given the time and space to grieve and heal without outside voices seeking to use events to stir up division or advance their own views. There will be other questions that flow as the investigation develops. We will doubtless, in the days ahead, discuss terrible violence and its causes. The investigation will, of course, pursue any contact the suspect may or may not have had with different agencies before the incident took place. And Southport will no doubt be in our minds when we debate Martin's Law as part of the King's speech. But for today, the most important focus of all must be the injured children, the grieving and traumatised families, and the people of Southport who are in shock at what has happened. Tonight, people from across Southport are gathering for a community vigil. When I visited this morning, many people were gathering at Southport Football Club, which had thrown its doors open for the community, and where youth workers told me they were determined to keep supporting Southport children with events this summer. And I hope everybody will recognise the sense of community and solidarity of the people of Southport who have come together to support each other in the most terrible of times. The words of one paramedic have stayed with me, and he described how terrible it was when he arrived and how despairing he felt, but also how proud he was of his colleagues and passers-by who pulled together to help. And he said that while facing the very worst of times, he could also see around him in his colleagues and passers-by who were working together to save lives, the very best of humanity. And that is what we keep in our hearts as we think of Southport, as we think of the grieving families, and most of all, our thoughts are with the little children, and we keep them in our prayers tonight. I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Home Secretary James Cleverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I also thank the Secretary of State for an advanced copy of her statement. This was a heinous attack on innocent children and those caring for them at the start of the summer holidays. It has left, no doubt, families broken and a community scarred. I'm grateful to the Home Secretary for coming to the House to update us on this situation, and I'm grateful to you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing flexibility on the order paper so that this event can be discussed. The Home Secretary and the Prime Minister, of course, have done the right thing by going to Southport today to offer the government's condolences, and I echo their sentiment. All of our thoughts are with the victims of this appalling attack, their families, and the people of Southport at this incredibly difficult time. Our thoughts are especially with those who have lost their lives and those who are currently being treated in hospital, some of course in critical condition, and we think of their families at this time. I want to thank our emergency services who responded to this horrific attack. We should never take the bravery of those people who serve us for granted, and it is a reminder that when those people run towards danger, run towards unknown circumstances, we are duty-bound to give them our support so that they can act decisively and with confidence and do everything they can to save lives. And of course, our ongoing thanks goes to the staff of the National Health Service who are currently caring for those victims who are receiving hospital treatment. And particular thanks go to the members of the public who intervened to help despite the very significant danger to themselves. Their bravery cannot be overstated. We still know little about the details of what happened yesterday, and the Right Honourable Lady is absolutely right that we give the police the time to do a proper and thorough investigation. And she is also right to highlight the impact of misinformation and disinformation online. Enough people are already distressed without their distress being amplified by speculation and gossip online. I would ask that she follows up with the conversations that I had in the United States of America with the social media platforms regarding their responsibility in this regard. But it is also a reminder to all of us that we have a personal responsibility to check before we share and do not feel the need to get involved in the grief of others. There will, of course, be a time when we must ask how this happened so that we can take the right steps to ensure that no child, no family, and no community has to face the anguish that the people of Southport are feeling today. It is, of course, too early for us to know the full picture, but an attack on innocent children enjoying their summer holiday strikes to the heart of us all. And no matter what drove this individual to commit this appalling crime, we stand together in solidarity with the people of Southport today. And I want to finish by, of course, saying that our hearts go out to the 3 young girls who have lost their lives, Bibi, Elsie, and Alice. We cannot imagine what their families are going through now, and I know the whole House will join the Home Secretary and me in expressing our condolences to them. And I thank the Home Secretary for her statement.
Home Secretary.
Can I thank the Shadow Home Secretary for his words and for his support for the families, for the whole community in Southport, particularly for his tribute to the emergency service workers who he will know from all of his past experience, the heroism that they show, but that was strained beyond anything that we could have imagined with what they had to deal with yesterday, and to his recognition of the bravery of passers-by who came forward to help as well. I agree with him too about the responsibility on every one of us. The police do need to be able to pursue this investigation. There will be wider questions for other days, but the most important thing is that every one of us supports the police in their investigation now. I agree with him too about the responsibility on social media companies, because we do need to recognise there are things that are taking place on social media that go against their terms and conditions and their commitments as well. They need to take some responsibility for that. But above all, this is about young children, and this is about children and their families who will be grieving, and the many other children who were involved yesterday who will be facing great trauma as well. And this is a moment when it's not just the people of Southport who will be desperately wanting to come together to support their own. This is about all of us, not just across this house, but across the whole country, being there for the people of Southport and the families who have lost loved ones.
Just to say, the Member of Parliament for Southport is actually in the constituency, and I'm going to take the most immediate MP, Bill Esterson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Our honourable friend is at the vigil, which is taking place as we gather, and I am sure that he is grateful, as are his constituents, for the visits of the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary earlier today, and he will be grateful, and they will be grateful to both the Home Secretary and the Shadow Home Secretary for what they've said this evening. This is about Bibi, it is about Elsie, and it is about Alice. It's about 3 young children who were murdered. And the Prime Minister talked about a collective trauma for the people of Merseyside, and I think that is exactly what is going on. My constituents are reflecting it, as are the people in Southport. And can I then pass on the thanks of my constituents to the emergency services for their response, for the fact that they are back at work today, as the Home Secretary said, and as the Shadow Home Secretary said, to those local people who intervened as well. Can I also add to what the Home Secretary said about the importance of responsibility of everyone here, but everyone more widely, and the concerns that she and the Shadow Home Secretary expressed about what has been said on social media. And can I just say that I think the best way to respond to it is to look at the overwhelming sense of love and support that is seen at the vigil, in the many messages that have been left, in the floral tributes, and online from the vast majority of people, not just in Southport, but across the country. And that is the appropriate way to support those victims and their grieving loved ones this evening.
Can I thank my honourable friend for his words? I know as a close neighbour for Southport how much he and his constituents will be feeling this now, and also pay tribute to the MP for Southport who I spoke to today, who set off the moment he heard about this horrific attack yesterday, set off back home to be able to be there in the community, and who was showing such leadership with the local residents and in the community, and at Southport Football Club, where so many people had come together today. This is just immensely hard for communities, as all of us will know when we feel our own communities face pressure, but it's still so hard to just imagine what the community will be going through, and I know they will very much welcome everyone's support.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Leila Moran.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Democrats extend our heartfelt condolences to those affected by the horrific events that have unfolded in Southport. I cannot begin to imagine the profound grief of the families of Elsie, Bibi and Alice, but also that sense of clinging that the families of those children still in hospital must be feeling right now, knowing that they would do anything to keep those beautiful babies alive. We echo the deep gratitude for our emergency services and the courage and professionalism that they will have shown, as well as the adults in the room who were clearly trying to protect the others who were there. The community has endured the unimaginable. Young lives lost in an act of such senseless violence. And I pay tribute, along with her, to the outreach workers of the council and the police. She will know that councils are under a lot of strain right now. Is there extra funding that they have available to be able to access, so that it's not just the scars that are happening now, but the scars that are likely to emerge that they can address? And then very finally, she's right to point out that this is not the time for the what-ifs. We need the investigation to happen first. I echo her plea to everyone to think before they post on this matter, but would she commit to coming back to this House? Because at some point there will be lessons that need to be learned from this. And I hope collectively as a Parliament we can say to that grieving community, whatever lessons will be learned, we will make sure that they are also enacted.
Can I welcome the words that the honourable member has said, and her support for Southport, for the community, for the families and for the emergency workers. She's also right, I think, to recognise the impact that dealing with something as awful as this can have on the emergency workers, on those who had to respond. And I think it's right we should recognise that and show our support. We owe those workers our support and our thanks for what they had to face and the way that they responded. But also, most of all, everybody will want to support the grieving families, the victims, those who have been most affected and who will have seen huge trauma as a result. Victim Care Merseyside is already working closely to provide support. The Merseyside family liaison officers do an incredible job. I have met them in difficult circumstances in the past, and I know they will continue to do so. But the Home Office and other government departments do stand ready to work with them and to support them to make sure the community gets the support it needs.
Sir Julian Lewis.
May I just draw the attention of the House and the wider public who may be watching to the fact that the Sky News feed has a link to a Just Giving website to raise money for the bereaved families and all the costs that will be associated with their bereavement. And this is a practical way in which people can contribute. And may I just briefly draw attention to the fact that when these situations arise, some of the most heroic participants are actually women on the scene. And I've never understood why the courageous women who went to help Lee Rigby and confront his murderers never received a bravery award, and I still don't understand, though it's not too late, why Grace O'Malley Kumar, who instead of running away from her murderer, sought to fight with the killer of her friend Barnaby, hasn't been honoured. So let us try to draw the inspiration that we can draw even from the darkest of deeds like this.
Secretary.
Well, I welcome the tribute the honourable member has made to bravery, both of those who were there in this incident in Southport yesterday, but also in previous horrific attacks where they have been called upon to show great bravery in the most difficult circumstances, and people have done so, and we should recognise that. I think we should all recognise that there were adults who were there yesterday who did everything they could to protect children who were being attacked and faced really awful circumstances as a result themselves. All of them will be in our hearts and in those right across the country as well.
On behalf of myself and the DUP, I wish to extend my deepest condolences to the bereaved and the devastated families, and I think importantly to those in hospital who are fighting for their lives. I think we also want to put on record our thanks to all of the emergency police and ambulance and those adults who made themselves available and with no thought of their own safety as well. So I think the message is clear for all those families. We grieve with you, our hearts ache with you, and all of us in this great nation of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland will have all of those families in our prayers. I think parents and mums and dads want to know that these children, that their children are safe. So does the Home Secretary agree that this must be the goal, and perhaps she can outline just how that can be achieved?
I think all of us will share the emotion that the Honourable Member has, and I think when everyone thinks as a parent, as a grandparent, as an aunt or uncle, think of little children being affected in this way, and how devastating all of this is. I think it makes every parent want to hug their children a little closer when we see just something as truly appalling as this happen. The other thing I would say is, having been in Southport today at the football club, what the youth workers were really keen to say to me was that they were going to continue to support Southport children all summer. They would continue to be organising events for Southport children all summer. They were doing so this morning, and they had children playing football. Little boys and girls were out playing football at the Southport Football Club today, and the youth workers were supporting them, their families were supporting them, and there was a real determination to come together to support families and to support children, and to never let a horrific incident like this stop all of us supporting our children, for them to be out in the sun this summer holiday.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and Reform UK, I'd just like to offer my heartfelt condolences to the families and friends of the children involved, and commend actually the Home Secretary who's carried herself with great dignity today. So I would like to thank her for that, Mr. Speaker. And I'm just looking at the three names on this sheet here. Absolutely heartbreaking to see these little children's names here. So I'd just like to know, kindly please, Home Secretary, what more can we do as a House to support these families and the emergency workers up in Southport, and please send them our love.
Can I thank the Honourable Member for his support for the people of Southport, for all of these families. For BB, for Elsie, for Alice, this is, for their families, this is just heartbreaking. And so I think this is a moment really for everyone to send them our love and support, to do the same for the whole community in Southport, because this affects everyone. Everyone knows someone who maybe once went to that dance class, or somebody who wants, who's a neighbour who's affected. Everyone knows someone who is just affected so deeply by what has happened, and this is our opportunity to support them and to support the police who are carrying out this crucial investigation, and to support all of the local groups and organisations who are coming together to support each other at this very difficult time.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Speaker, could I thank the Home Secretary for the statement and the way that she made the statement this afternoon about this utterly horrific incident that took place. And in memory of those that have already lost their lives and those that are still suffering in hospital, can we challenge the whole knife culture that does exist on the streets of many of our communities and many of our constituencies, where people believe that some or other carrying a knife is a good and cool thing to do? Young people have lost their lives, a horrific incident has taken place, people are traumatised by this. That message needs to go to everybody else, whoever thinks that carrying a knife is some or other a good thing to do or cool to do.
Can I thank the Honourable Member for his support for the families who are affected and for people in Southport. He makes a wider point about the issues around knives and knife crime, and this really has to be a moral mission for all of us, and there is a wider debate that we will have on other days about some of those issues. For today, though, I think this is still about Bibi, Elsie and Alice. This is still about the families who are still waiting by the bedsides of their little children tonight, and those across the community who will be thinking of them.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to join the Minister in expressing my deepest and heartfelt condolences to the families of Alice, Bibi and Elsie. Words can't express the sorrow they must be feeling after experiencing the worst nightmare of every parent. And indeed, heartfelt prayers are with all those children and elders who are still in the hospital. And solidarity with the entire community of Southport. I take this opportunity to ask the Minister whether there will be additional support mechanisms put in place for all those emergency workers that attended the scene and ensure that their well-being moving forwards is a priority.
Also. Good point.
Can I again welcome the support for the families and for all of those who, not just those who are grieving, but those who are dealing with trauma today. It is important, as I think said earlier, that we make sure that emergency service workers who had to deal with the most difficult circumstances on all of our behalf, they have done so to keep the rest of us safe. And let us be clear, they saved lives yesterday. Their bravery, and when they arrived, they saved lives. And they will have endured the most difficult of circumstances to do so. I raised this with the Chief Constable of Merseyside and also the Chief Fire Officer as well, to ensure that those who were there, and similar for the paramedics, that they also get the proper support that they will need. And I can assure the House that I was told that support is already being put in place to make sure, particularly in the Merseyside police, are already getting this additional support.
That completes the statement. I'll allow the front benches to change over.
Petition, Sir John Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and welcome to the Chair. I rise to present a petition on behalf of my constituents. It's just shy of 2,000 of whom have signed a petition calling on the House of Commons to protect market